Hi everybody and welcome to the 333 Premier webinar. I'm Payal Pandya, Investment Advisory Team, and with us to discuss the Indian chemical sector today, we have Nilesh Guge, who joins us with a vast experience of 10 years in research, 3 years in HDFC Security, and prior to research, Nilesh has a very in-depth experience with BPCL, so he brings in a lot of industry knowledge there. Hi Nilesh, welcome.
Thanks, Payal.
So Nilesh, when I was going through your report, our positive view on the Indian chemical sector is based on 4 key pillars. One being the domestic availability of raw materials. The second being accelerated capex, which will build the capabilities and enable backward integration, which will eventually help margin expansion and things like that. The third being investment in R&D, and then the import substitution and the export opportunity, of course. Now, from what I understand broadly, more importantly, from the first and the fourth point, in this current India-China situation, okay, where on one hand we have a very tensed environment along the LAC, and at the same time, the entire world is seeking another, second inline manufacturer for a lot of, several products, including APIs and chemicals and everything. And so is India also going ahead in the similar direction. Now, broadly reading, I happened to come across some numbers which said that India's share in the chemical pie is say about 3%, while China has like a 25% share of the pie. So isn't that we are competing with a big giant? What is it like? Is it possible for India to really scale up to that level and be the second China that we are looking forward to becoming for the world and for us as well? There's obviously there has been reasons of cost and others why we also have been importing a lot from China, which now seems to be gradually changing. What are your views?
Good afternoon all. So Payal, you are right in saying that we are, if I look at the number, we are so small compared to China, 30-35% in global market share, while we are just 3%. But we need to understand that China has created that huge capacity over last 20 years, and there is a continuous focus of Chinese government to develop this industry. And here I would like to highlight one thing, why it is needed the focus of government, because it is a B2B business industry. So chemical industry per se is a backbone of you can just name it, the pharmaceutical, agrochemical, FMCG, cosmetics, water treatment. It is a backbone of all those industry. So a dollar investment in chemical industry create the more than 4 times or maybe $4 to $5 in the entire, in the manufacturing industry. So that kind of focus they have, and that's why they are able to create that such a huge size. But yes, what I believe that current position, see, there are continuous talk about the shifting of China manufacturing to maybe India or maybe other nations. India is one of them, but maybe other nations. And it is continuously going on since 2008. The reason was different in 2008. It is because of Olympics, then it is a environmental pollution, then there is a trade war. But this time around, particularly in this situation, pandemic, COVID-19, the demand is coming from MNCs. The MNCs and the government across globe are looking for China plus one. So there is a force or there is a pull from these MNCs, whether it is a pharmaceutical giants or agrochemical companies. They want someone else to manufacture their APIs or the intermediates. Earlier, this scenario, if I look at last 10 years, since 2008, it was the Chinese government and their policies forced these companies to shift away from China. But now this is not the case. Now the pull is coming from the companies themselves, or the management at least are giving a thought to shift away from China. It may not happen very easily. Of course, definitely they will fight back, or they will try to retain their share as well. But these companies, whether it is a chemical giant or the pharmaceutical giant, at least they will shift or give a thought, or there will be, I will say, a discussion in the board, on the board, to shift away from China. And the percentage wise, if you ask me, then let's say just to give a number, for example, currently China's market share is 35%. If there is a shift of, let's say, 10% from China to India, but for us it is doubling our share from 3 to 6. Because if suppose their share down from 35 to, let's say, 32 or maybe 30, it's just a 10% for them, but for us it is doubling of share. So there is enough scope for our companies.
Correct, very true at that. Nilesh, while definitely there is a vast scope, okay, also explains because we are just 3% of the global share, so definitely. And despite that, I think we are amongst the top 6 in the globe and some third largest by production in Asia, if I'm not wrong, right? So even to grow our share or to a doubling level, or to attract more of foreign demand so that our export is boosted and things like that, don't you think Indian companies will actually have to up their scale quite a bit in the sense of uh, their capacities? Do we really have that scale to go to that level of manufacturing and provide for the demand that is now getting generated? Because this is going to come at a speed, right? The demand. So how long will we be taking to really cope up with that?
So, Payal, one need to understand there is a difference between commodity manufacturing chemical. If you look at, it's divided into two parts: commodity chemicals and
Hmm.
specialty chemical. See,
Hmm.
when I say commodity chemical, that commodity chemical has an application, maybe dozens of different application in different industry. While the
Hmm.
specialty chemical, when I talk about it, it has only one or two core application, and
Hmm.
it is, yeah, and the commodity chemical uh, is, you can say, the success of commodity chemical manufacturing is a function of size and scale. And we have to accept the thing that we cannot compete with China on that front. We have to accept that. But if you look at the Indian chemical manufacturers, so we choose a different path. Our
Hmm.
focus is more to manufacture specialty chemicals, because specialty chemical, as it says, as I already mentioned, that they have a limited core application, I will say. And
Hmm.
the investment required for specialty chemicals compared to commodity chemicals is significantly lower. In fact, that could be the one of the reason for our chemical industry growing in that direction, rather than putting up the commodity chemical manufacturing. So
Hmm.
that, in fact, the one of the reason for our manufacturer going towards specialty chemical. Also, second thing, these specialty chemicals, you are involved into, or you are involved along with your customer, right from the product conceptualization to maybe the product development stage and the execution. So you are so involved in that product manufacturing that you become, as long as you are a reliable supplier for that particular commodity or for that chemical, I will say. So that's a benefit, and in fact that gives you stability in terms of revenue, in terms of margin. And for for the investor community, how much revenue you will generate out of that chemical. That kind of bonding is in I will say, one should look at the companies who are involved in that kind of relationship with customers. So
Hmm.
that's why I like specialty chemicals. So if you look at, you said how we can compete. Yes, we cannot compete on the scale and the size, particularly on the commodity size, but specialty, yes, we have expertise, we have talent pool available with ourselves, and that will give a bright future for the specialty chemical, I will say, manufacturing in India.
Okay, so basically, without running around the bush, we will rather Indian chemical sector will focus on the niche where we are the best at, and that's where we see maximum growth of doubling and things like that. If I'm understanding correctly.
Yes.
Yes. So
Yes,
coming to
yes.
petrochemicals, then Nilesh, the chemical manufacturers are diversifying into propylene and ethylene, and several OMCs also have gotten into this now more seriously. And additionally, in the news, we also come across the government, suggesting that even sugar manufacturers, to reduce the excess supply of sugar, they might, move some portion to the ethanol manufacturing and things like that. How related is this, and how do we understand the future of this?
So, Sham, can we do one thing? Can you open the page number 11, the exhibit 18? Yeah, sure. Thanks. So, yeah. So, I would like to highlight this point. See what happened. When I talk about specialty, just give me let me give you brief about how the specialty chemical manufacturing and how the building blocks are, and how the petrochemical is involved into all this specialty chemical manufacturing, and where do we stand currently. And that's why, as you mentioned in your opening comment, that domestic availability of a petrochemical intermediate is the important factor for the chemical specialty chemical. So see what happened. The petrochemical intermediates are the building blocks for downstream specialty chemicals. So it is essential to have these petrochemical intermediates to build up upon the specialty chemical industry per se. But unfortunately, India depends largely on imports, and you can see in Exhibit 18 also. These are chemicals which are the petrochemical intermediates. So we largely depend on imports. And specialty chemicals, as I said, as per the definition, specialty chemical, the volumes are low volume and better margin business. So if suppose you are the manufacturer of a specialty chemical, then and you have to import those petrochemical intermediate, then either you have to you have to import in a bulk, or you have to store it in your tankage. And so inventory is the one of the challenge, and you become the uncompetitive in the global front, because the quantum or the requirement is, or it is a niche market, I will say. It is unlike a commodity where you import in a bulk and you sell it in a bulk, but the specialty are characterized as a low volume chemicals. So you become uncompetitive in that case. Therefore, the availability of a petrochemical intermediate domestically is the main factor for the growth of downstream specialty chemicals. But majority, as I said, majority, yeah. And at the same time, what happened? This petrochemical intermediate, you just name it, and it is the synthesized, most of these derivatives synthesized from either from ethylene and propylene, or the derivatives of ethylene and propylene. But in India, what happens? Large part of ethylene and propylene is used to manufacture the polymers out of this, the HDP, LLDP, and polypropylene, etc. Because for refineries, it makes sense to use that polymer or the ethylene propylene molecule to convert it into polymers, because there are logistic infrastructure challenges. We don't have the infrastructure availability to transport ethylene, because it requires cryogenic condition to transport. So you don't have that facility available. So instead of using ethylene or the propylene for making petrochemical intermediate, they prefer to sell it to polymer manufacturer, or they themselves make the polymer out of that. And there is a, of course, there is a demand for that polymer from the to manufacture plastic. So large part of ethylene and propylene goes into manufacturing of that. But what happened over last, I will say, 5 to 8 years? What happened? These refineries or the oil marketing companies and the chemical giant like the petrochemical giant like Opal and the GAIL, BCPL, these companies have understood the importance of the use of this ethylene and propylene into other molecules, or the manufacturing requirement of these specialty chemicals, and now they are giving thought, or they are putting investment in developing this niche molecule. Just the example of, if I like to give example of a BPCL or the BASF putting up the along with the Adani, the investment of about $4 billion. Then IOCL has already announced a plan to enter into petrochemical business, or expansion, further expansion into petrochemical plant. And once these chemicals are domestically available, then what happens? The downstream industry or the specialty chemical manufacturer can use that chemicals, and they can derive n number of products out of that. See, it's like a chicken and egg story, I will say. Once these chemicals are available, then maybe they can think of and go ahead with the different products, because already demand is there, domestic demand is already there. So they can come out with the different products. Currently we are importing those products, or we are not aware of those products in the specialty chemical industry per se. But once this domestic availability of a petrochemical intermediates are there, they can put up the plan. Just for example, if I give you example of ethylene oxalate, the Reliance come out with this ethylene oxide, and then Galaxy Surfactant or the Aarti Surfactant, they are the beneficiary of that, because ethylene oxide logistic, there are challenges in transporting that ethylene oxide. So once it is available domestically from Reliance, they can expand their portfolio in the surfactant industry. So these are just two example. Similarly, Manali Petrochemical or the Andhra Chemical, these are the example where they come out with the different products which are totally import substituted, and they created a market for that in domestic market.
Okay.
So that's why it is important for to have domestic availability of a raw material, and that's why these companies. And the second thing, see, there is a win-win situation for oil marketing companies also, because the GRMs or the gross refining margins are at bottom rock. The crude oil it's already at currently around $40–41 per barrel. The margins are close to $3 to $4. So instead of just putting out, or just taking advantage of the petroleum product, why not to go further downstream and earn more dollar, or you can say the value-added product. For them, it is a value-added product for them. So they can get good margin out of that product. So it is a win-win situation, not only for the specialty chemical manufacturer, but also for the oil marketing companies as well.
OMCs.
Yeah, OMCs.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. So then, how do we see these? See the surfactants market lately? I wouldn't say lately, but in the near times, a lot of attention has moved to surfactants, be it Aarti surfactants or Galaxy surfactants, or for that matter, UPL also manufactures some a certain portion, and they are one of the key suppliers to a few detergent makers. And then we have Ultramarine, whose surfactants business also is doing pretty well. So how do we understand that kind of niche? Where is it heading to? Is it going to be in the hands of these few big players, or is it likely to expand further? And does the demand for surfactants per se really grow with the overall growing economy, or is it something which is more like a steady state thing where a certain kind of demand keeps coming on a repeat basis types?
See, surfactant also, it's very general term and it has a wide application across category. See, surfactant we use in the washing, or we use in the laundry usage. This just we can see, but not only that, the surfactant has application in oil and gas. Surfactant has an application in water treatment. Surfactant has an application in cosmetics. In fact, cosmetics are huge. In the demand, end user industry for surfactant. That's a surprising part. People are not aware of about that. See what kind of, it is chemical industry, whether you manufacture surfactant or whether you manufacture any molecule, the demand or the end user industry decide your growth. See, if you are a surfactant manufacturer, for example, you are a supplier of a paint to car industry or the automobile industry. So your demand, your growth, it's pegged to that. If 80% of your paint is going to automobile industry, then definitely your growth is the function of that. But if suppose the same paint is going to FMCG company like Asian Paints or Nero, you are a supplier of a Nerolac or you are a supplier of Asian Paint, then your demand or your growth, it depends on the real estate business. So though you are into dyes and pigment business, we both are in the same business, but the growth is totally different. Growth is totally different. It is the end user industry that deserve. And as far as you asked me about surfactant, so surfactant, as I said, it has a wide application. So and also the amount of surfactant used in the end user industry. If suppose it is a laundry, then 30% is the surfactant, but in a toothpaste, this is to 1 to 2%. But the margins are much better if you are a supplier of a Colgate compared to if you are a supplier of HUL. Though the volumes are totally different, but the margins, because your plant has to certified by Colgate, because it is going into home and personal care. So companies who are supplying surfactant to end user industry, like home and personal care, particularly personal care, if that surfactant is going into cosmetics, then definitely you should be a reliable source for the company. Not only that, your plant should be approved from that company, and these approvals are as stringent as any FDA approval, because you are playing with the life of that person. So the point I want to stress here is that the end user industry is the driving force behind my growth or my margin or my you can say earnings, particularly, or the cyclicality of my business. If suppose I am a supplier to automobile industry, then definitely my growth is cyclical, or it is a cyclical nature of my business. But if suppose I am a supplier of a chemical to pharmaceutical, then definitely my growth is a steady growth kind of thing. So one need to understand, particularly in a chemical companies, the end user industry, the one question one need to understand to ourselves before investing in that company, that which is the end user industry this company is catering to, and take a call on that, not the chemical business or not the chemistry that they are involved. These are the secondary question, I will say. The first question is the end user industry.
Okay. So in all of this then, Nilesh, like we have observed in the past 2-3 years especially, as compared to another set of 2-3 years before that, the R&D expenses have really grown, and more and more of CRAMS has picked up. And even going ahead, the planned R&D is much larger than what has already happened. And so do we understand that CRAMS probably is going to be the kind of future that we will see, instead of single companies getting into all backward integration and forward integration and things like that? Is it going to be like the companies which will manufacture final products, which will go on the counter, are not really going to get into the nitty-gritties of manufacturing these, but this task will be left to the experts whose uh, growth will come from CRAMS driven high EBITDA products and things like that. Is that understanding correct?
So to just elaborate on that, Sham, can you open the page number 14 and exhibit 23? Just exhibit 23, just below, towards the end of this page. Yeah. See, one of the important thing, particularly in the specialty thing, specialty chemical manufacturing, I would like to, I already highlighted that part. The company's success and growth depend on the ability to innovate. Their ability or the R&D capability is the, you can say, success key for specialty chemical. Unlike commodity, because, and why? Because commodity chemical manufacturing, the technological know-how is available. It is tried and tested technology. But that is not the case with the specialty chemical. You have to innovate. See, then what are the options available? You have to innovate on your own, or you have to collaborate with your customer or the manufacturer and make your R&D capable enough to work with those, and they will share the technology know-how with you. So that's why you have to spend this into R&D. You have to incur investment, and it is a continuous process. If you look at the exhibit 23, over last 10 11 years, the R&D spending, this is the graph showing the R&D spending of 28 domestic chemical manufacturing companies having market capitalization greater than 10 billion. So it includes all the BASF, Tata Chemical, Aarti Industries, SRF, all the top chemical companies, you just name it and it's there. And these are the R&D spent by them. See, if you look at the actual number, absolute number, it is small compared to a global standard. But we need to understand that at least the chemical companies are talking about R&D spending. That is the in fact is the I will say the benchmark kind of thing, or this is a good sign that these companies have recognized the importance of R&D and their R&D spend. This, if I look at the total R&D spend, it grew by about 16 with a 16% CAGR over last 10 years, and it has accelerated. Yeah, it has accelerated over last 3 to 5 years. And the companies like SRF or the Aarti Industry, they are the leader, and there is a continuous focus of these companies or the management towards R&D spending. If I look at the company's annual report 10 12 years back, no one talks about R&D and how importance of the R&D, but today the number of scientists, number of patents companies receive are coming on the front page. They are giving that information in yes, management and discussion. Addresses the R&D spending in their in the annual report. So that is the importance, or they have realized the importance. And if you ask me about the how it is related to sales growth, so it's very difficult to say how much is the revenue conversion from this R&D spend. But if you look at the number of molecules going from lab scale to pilot scale and then pilot scale to commercial scale, it has gone up significantly for Aarti, for SRF, and the number of products now they are manufacturing compared to number of products they had manufactured. They compare the products 5 6 years back. So they are trying different things. In fact, you rightly pointed out the CRAMS. Yes, the CRAMS is totally new in this. If I look at the 8 to 9 years back, the CRAMS, the Navin Fluorine, Aarti Industry, PI Industry, they entered into CRAMS business, and why? Because the customers realize the R&D capabilities of these companies, and they want to tie up and use the you can say the knowledge of the talent or the talent pool available with the companies, chemical companies in India, and develop molecule. Not only that, molecule, that the process also. So that is reflected, that shows, and that gives us confidence to me that yes, we are in the right direction, and the bright future for this specialty chemical per se, because of this spending in the R&D and the engagement that these companies are getting, or the contracts these companies are getting because of that.
Correct. So Nilesh, then should we understand that this growth that will come in specialty chemicals is not something which would be seen in 1 or 2 years or something? It is strong tailwinds, but in a slightly longish term, where it will achieve its full potential, maybe say around 4 or 5 years types. Is that a fair assumption?
See, yes, yes. As I said in my opening remark, that this current change is a permanent kind of change, I will say, because these MNCs and government are the China one policy. See, earlier policy of a blue sky policy of China government, it is the push kind of thing. But now these companies have realized the importance of other or the manufacturing hub, and to create the competition. See, the reason could be anything between trade wars to pandemic, but at least the thought process is going on across the board, and that will drive the, you can say, the earnings for, or the growth for, the long-term growth for this sector. On top of that, if you look at the recent announcement by government, and the government also, Indian government particularly, it's a proactive, I will say, in last 6 months, the incentive scheme announced for the manufacturing of the pharma and API, and that will drive the growth. See, because ultimately it is the chemical molecule. So if suppose pharmaceutical companies come out with any API, or they require intermediate, they require raw material supplier, they require solvents. So definitely there is a bright future for Indian chemical manufacturing, and particularly but only thing, they have to see, macros are in their favor, but they need to understand the R&D importance, the technology, investment in technology, and the capex in right direction. So that's a word of caution I would like to give to this sector.
Correct. That is where these companies will actually have to scale up their abilities so as to make use of this upcoming opportunity, right? And in this backdrop, Nilesh, what are your best picks, and why do you think that they are going to, do better than the others in their game?
Among this chemical, or the 7 coverage units, or the specialty chemical manufacturing company, our units, my top pick is Aarti and Alkylamines. Then the SRF and Galaxy, and then it's a Balaji, Navin Fluorine, in that order. But my top pick is Aarti and Alkylamine. And if you ask me the near-term trigger or the long-term growth, see, the what I believe, the current focus of Aarti industry to expand their product portfolio in the toluene business, that will drive the business for them in long term. But the near term trigger, and also they are expanding their portfolio into pharmaceutical. So long term, yes, the pharma segment and the toluene, the expansion in the toluene business will drive earnings for Aarti. But near term also, company is expanding that's a nitrochlorobenzene capacity. Then apart from that, the company is focusing on some anti-diabetics, or the Flugene, and also anticoagulants molecules. And these new products will be validated in this year, the current financial year, and that will drive the earnings for near term. But I'm more looking Aarti industry into a long-term view with the expansion in the toluene business, with the photochlorination. They talk about the photochlorination will expand their product portfolio into toluene business. And yes, we know they have a significant the market share in benzene, but toluene they will also they are I mean, they will create huge size over next, I will say next decade, 5 to 6 years from here on.
So then this is a good long-term story we should assume.
Yes, yes. Aarti, don't look at the near-term. Near-term triggers are there. See, there is an expansion, as I said, debottlenecking of their plant. But look at this Aarti industry as a long-term buy kind of thing. Coming to my second pick, alkyl amines. See, as you know, amines are largely used in a pharmaceutical industry as a solvent, pharmaceutical and agrochemical industry. Alkyl amines derive about 70% of their top line from these two sectors, the pharma and agrochemical. And they are expanding their, and you know, being an essential industry, pharma and agrochemical, so their earnings are largely protected in this scenario also, this pandemic situation as well. And they're expanding their product portfolio, they're expanding their methylamine capacity. The plant is expected to come in a couple of months from here on. And then there is a good traction in the acetonitrile, which is the one of their product. And acetonitrile prices are pretty good. They are getting good margin for the acetonitrile. But these are the short-term or a near-term trigger, I will say 1 to 3 years point of view. But the long-term, I will say, as I said, these amines are used as a solvent in a pharma. So this recently announced production link incentive scheme for the pharmaceutical that will drive the long-term growth, or that will give the good opportunity for amines industry and particularly alkyl amine. And see, and the third thing I would like to highlight about alkyl amine is the quality of management. The management focus is there on amines. They want to stick to amines business only. Both these, the people who are driving this company are technocrat. They are highly focused. They have focus on this amines industry, and then know business very well. So that's why my alkyl amine is my preference, or the top pick also in this industry.
Okay, that's very insightful, Nilesh. Just one last thing I want to ask you. From all of the positives that we have known, and the way the chemical story has been panning out in the most recent past, we have seen significant run-up in all these stocks. Do you think they justify their valuations as of now? Or because if we see their literal multiple growth is a little longish in term, so how would you justify this? Do you see their prices to keep re-rating, their valuations going through the roof over and over again, just in a hope for the next until their doubling is achieved, or they might just go through some phase of cooling down also?
Good question, Payal. See, if suppose my product is good, I deserve a better price. Why HDFC Bank trading at a more than 4 times price to book value despite all ups and downs? So because the quality of the product. So that's the matter a lot. If suppose these companies, what I believe, they deserve this better multiple. See, it is not just 1 or 2 parameters I would like to highlight, but I would like to highlight 3-4 parameters. First, I expect this EBITDA and PAT growth for these companies, particularly the specialty chemical universe, is about 19 to 23% over the next couple of years. And compared to EBITDA PAT growth of 7 and 13% over last 3 years. So this is so momentum will continue. If I look at the last 2 years momentum, that momentum will continue. Second thing, the quality of earning is not driven by commodity prices. See, but owing to increase in share of value-added products in the mix. If you look at all across, whether it is Aarti, whether it is Alkyl or Navin Fluorine, the value or the value-added product share has gone up significantly, and also there is a focus on high-margin customized product and particularly from a difficult chemistry. As I said, Navin Fluorine is going into difficult chemistry. SRF is trying not only fluorine but going into non-fluorine chemistry. The amines industry, if you ask me, Balaji and Alkyl, they try different products over last 3 to 4 years. So and it is reflected in their if I look at the revenue, EBITDA and PAT growth. So it's a clear-cut indication that the growth is not only because of the commodity prices, but it is driven by value-added product. In fact, I will say these companies like SRF and Aarti, now they become end-to-end API player versus just the provide. Earlier, if you look at their product basket, they were just providing intermediate, but now that is not the case. The Aarti industry last year manufacture about 39 different APIs on themselves. Not only that, they supply about intermediate to 40 different APIs. And see, the third thing is that all these companies will be able to reinvest their cash flow. See, there is an opportunity available for these companies to reinvest, and not only into just backward integration. And if you look at the capex cycle, the current capex cycle, so they are not investing in just the backward or the forward integration, but into revenue generation project. The different chemistry they are going into. They are working with the customer, as I said, to develop new molecules. They are going towards high margin CRAMS business. So that's why they deserve the better multiple. Don't look at the earning projection over next couple of years, but look at the long-term opportunity. If you are a supplier of a pharmaceutical or the agrochemical, the government support is there. Government want the Atmanirbhar, or the government is vocal for local. So this will drive the entire specialty chemical universe. Opportunities are huge, and as I said, just a 10% shift away from China to India, the opportunity size is doubling for Indian chemical manufacturing.
Correct. Absolutely.
And
so
last,
then we
last
should
point
assume
I
that,
would like to highlight,
yes, please.
Yeah, the last point I would like to highlight particularly about this specialty chemical manufacturer. See, specialty chemical manufacturers, if you categorize in various value added chain, then there are 3 different categories. The first one is the toller. You just sell your manufacturing facility, the customer use your manufacturing facility, there is a no technology know-how sharing, and because of the cost you just give the benefit to the customer. But companies now transfer themselves from toller manufacturing to custom chemical producer. We have example like Navin Fluorine, Aarti Industries in a chemical, or in an agrochemical space we have example of PI industry. So where you get the technology know-how, you are involved into product development stage or the product conceptualization, and you support the chemistry on any scale that is designed for an individual customer. You are making the customized product for them, so your margins are better. So see, there are very few examples like RTP and maybe 3-4 more, but we have evolved ourselves from just the toller to custom chemical producer. So why not? Therefore, these companies should deserve better multiple, and with a more and more R&D spending, with a more and more focused capex on the new chemistry, definitely there is a bright future for the other chemical manufacturer to convert themselves from toller to custom chemical producer. And why not to proprietary? And the third stage is the proprietary chemical manufacturer. We may come out with the chemical which are there are no one else is producing that chemical. So that much possibilities are there. That's why they deserve a better multiple.
Brilliant. So then we should assume that the high multiples are there to remain. Plus, there could be expansion in this multiple as well with newer innovations coming in their products and categories and how the companies cope with that. Thanks a lot, Neelesh.
Yeah.
This has been an exceptional discussion, and I'm sure a lot of people have gotten a good idea about chemicals, which is otherwise a complex sector. Thanks a lot. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thanks,
Happy
Payal.
investing.
Thanks, Sham.
Thanks.